Welcome to the Leading with Empathy podcast. My name's Daniel Murray. My guest today is Simon Allsop. Simon is an accountant. He runs an amazingly successful bookkeeping practice and small business accounting practice. And I really enjoyed speaking with Simon, not only on the successes and some of the things he's learned along the way, but also how what sits behind his work is not numbers, it's people and passion. And that really comes to the fore in these event business, his Bullrush rallies that he runs. We talk about the ups and downs of running those types of events and really what he's learned about the importance of these experiences and connections that we have. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Simon also. G'day, Simon. Good to see you, mate. How things in beautiful Sydney?
Hey, very good. We've got a nice sunny day down here in Sydney. It's beautiful and crisp. Been really good.
Oh, wonderful. Look, really excited to have you on. I think probably a useful thing to start with, just a bit about you and your background, like what you do and how you got to here.
Yeah, all right. So look, my day-to-day business is running Ikeep, which is bookkeeping and payroll for small businesses all around the country. So it's my second time in running a business like this. First time grew it rather rapidly, and then got to the point where I was able to sell that business, and then had some time off and worked hard on building an events company, which is still going very well to this day. And but yeah, there's still opportunity in the market for a day-to-day accounting and bookkeeping solution for small businesses out there. So focusing on what businesses need has really seen a good bit of growth over the last 4 to 5 years inside this business. So we now work with a bit over 300 businesses around the country, helping them on a daily basis with their day-to-day accounting.
Can I maybe dive into that a bit just out of interest?
Yeah,
Why is there a need? Like, you're an accountant. You've
yeah,
obviously, I've studied economics and things like that as well.
yeah.
Economic theory suggests if there's a need, it'll be filled. There shouldn't be one. You had a business, you sold it. What's missing, or what do you find are the things that your clients really are looking for that they're not getting?
Yeah, well, look, there still seems to be a gap in businesses getting a clear picture of how they're performing financially. Like almost everybody you see is going to be wearing an Apple Watch or some sort of the Whoop bands or whatever else, getting some sort of metric on their physical health, performance, and how they're performing. Yet, even though you've got things like Xero and QuickBooks and Mile pushing the envelope on technology and AI, unless you've actually they're all tools, and so unless you've actually got a craftsman that knows how to use the tools, set them up properly, actually use them every day of the week, log in every day of the week to actually keep these things live, business owners are in the dark about how they're actually performing. And so we see a lot of businesses out there that are kind of judging on how they're going with, oh, have I got money in the bank, or is their main metric for is business good? But then that doesn't take into account, oh, next month's a BAS month, you haven't paid your superannuation, and actually of that 10 grand you got in your bank account, maybe 1 grand of it's yours, and the other 9 is owed in bills and other things. So like business owners desperately need a clear picture of how they're going, basically live, so that they can make good decisions in their business. And I guess
Yeah.
decisions means they'll be around for longevity. And yeah, look, I think there's a lot, the team and I find a lot of purpose in what we do because for most people we're working with, it's owner-operated businesses. And so like in the owner-operated business world, their business is probably the biggest asset they've got. So they're trusting us with the most important financial thing in their lives. So important to get it right and important to figure out whether it's good, bad, or otherwise as to how it's going.
Yeah, I want to dive in on this because I think this is an
Yeah.
interesting space. People sometimes see accounting and finance,
Mm.
I work with banks and
Yeah.
financial organizations, and there's lots of spreadsheets and numbers and
Mm.
red arrows and green arrows and all sorts of different things are going on.
Yeah.
But underlying all of that are people with passion, particularly in
Mm.
small businesses. This is their
Yeah.
said their baby. This is something they're so passionate about,
Yeah.
and I'm wondering, well, how do you approach that when there's probably an opportunity to be a cookie cutter? Your business. Here are the inputs. Here are the outputs. I give you a fancy
Yeah.
spreadsheet,
Yeah.
but it sounds like your approach is a bit different to that. How do you sort of connect and understand businesses more?
Yeah, look, it's got to be a lot more personal, which I think at this stage, whilst we've started in recent months seeing like NAB offering a free bookkeeping product, and like if you've logged into any of your internet bankings over the last 5 years or so, you'll often see a pie chart where it's kind of had a crack at trying to figure out where your money goes, how it's spent, and all of this. But one of the interesting things in the bookkeeping and day-to-day accounting space is like how many different ways you could call the one transaction. So like money lands in your bank account. Is it a loan? Is it income? Or does it have GST or it doesn't have GST? Is it a capital asset or an overhead? Like actually understanding the nature of the transactions. Look, I'm not saying that AI can't do it, but it's not at the point yet that it's capable of doing this. And look, the day that it can read some of these paper receipts that we get chucked into, I'll be super impressed. But the small business world is really personal. And so I mean, an expense of one nature for an expense of one type for one business could actually be a totally different type of expense for another business. So like one of our fashion clients might be out there buying makeup and clothes and all these sorts of things, which is 100% relevant to the business that they're doing it on. Yet if you see Mecca and other things in like one of our professional service businesses, then yeah, it's probably not a business related expense that's going through there. So there's this element of, I guess, being a little bit human in understanding the businesses you're working with, understanding the people and what they're doing, so that we can get their accounts as accurate as possible in showing them how they're actually going.
Yeah, and look, it's easy for small businesses. I know this from having poor financial accounting in the past, that it's
Yeah.
easy for us to get that wrong. As a business owner, you're sometimes so focused on all of the work you've got to do,
Hmm.
and then you just hope that the rest sort of works itself out.
Yeah.
And I guess that in that way, you've got a part. Well, tell me through the process. Like, you sign up with a business. How do you get to know what we do, what a business does, and
Yeah.
what they care about and what they're trying to achieve and all those other things? Like, what's the approach for it there? Is it simple
Yeah,
or hard?
look, you know what, there's a lot of conversations. And so there are conversations before they come on board to understand the history of their business, how they got into business, and what they're doing. And then, of course, from our perspective, understanding the systems, processes, and the information flow, because the information flow is a huge thing in modern bookkeeping. What can be automated and the like. And then, yeah, once they've signed up, there's then a detailed onboarding meeting. And look, during our onboarding meetings, we go through 5 things: the bank rec process, sales, purchases, payroll, and then reporting and compliance. So we figure out that aspect of the business. And so we never make assumptions. So we're all about talking, documenting, creating. Whilst we've got framework for checklists, each checklist is uniquely different as we understand exactly what makes a business owner feel comfortable or feel connected with the numbers inside their business. Obviously, if they sit there and say, "Oh, look, the bank balance makes me feel connected," we're like, "Okay, let's just have a little chat about whether that is a great metric or not." Not to say that we won't keep you informed with that. We're like, "Look, we'll have bank feeds pushing through to your accounting software, so that's a metric that we'll see." But maybe there are some other metrics we could encourage you to be looking at when we send through reporting at the end of the month, in addition to what you're familiar with, just to give you a more holistic picture rather than just one little dot in the ocean or one piece of the pie or whatever you want to call it, in understanding how your business is going. So it comes down to communication. That's why I don't think we're ever going to be at the point where, like, unless it's a super simple business, but then even if it's a super simple business where they could sign up themselves, do it themselves, then go use a NAB product or something that's cookie cutter. But the businesses we're working with typically have like maybe 5 employees or more. They're ones that actually can get value from someone who knows what they're doing, putting things in the right places and giving them some insights on their business. So we do have a bunch of smaller businesses, but the true value kind of comes from the bigger ones when there's more money, more dollars at stake in actually getting it right. And for that reason, a conversation and understanding exactly how their business operates and what's important to them is absolutely key.
Simon, it strikes me that sounds harder than just doing a cookie cutter approach. And
Yeah.
so my question is, why do you care about this? What drives you to actually not just go and work in a corporate or do the easier stuff and scale it easy? Just
Yeah.
Why do you care about this end of all this sort of work you do?
Why do we care about this? Look, a lot of the businesses we work with are owner operated. And you know what? The stuff that's exciting to work with are the business owners that are driven, passionate, and like have goals to literally change the world. So all good if you're a comfortable little sole trader and you're doing enough to survive, good on you, basics. That's all cool. But the excitement in the business is actually partnering with those that have a passion for something greater. So working with a business when they first come on with us, when they've got 5 people, and then in 6 months' time they've got 50 to then 100 and are actually a well-known brand. That sort of stuff's exciting. And it's like, okay, the insights that we've given them to make sure they stayed cash flow positive throughout the process, and like any business that has solid growth is going to have growing pains of some sort. So then therefore they need to know daily how much money we got in the bank, how much is coming in, cash flow forecast. Are we going to have enough to pay rent or wages at the end of the month? Like the businesses that are exciting to work with are those that actually value having clear insights on how they're performing. So, and look, we all need to enjoy what we do. You could have a battery farm of like freaking little, yeah, offices, little things, just doing the bare minimum, cash coding, automated. Yeah, AI will take all of that stuff, but it's also the low value stuff. So the more interesting is the more insightful, which comes from experience and saying, look, we work with other businesses in this industry. This is what we've seen them doing. This is what's worked really well for businesses that have gone through a similar sort of growth curve to what you're planning and working out. So yeah, having a conversation that imparts something meaningful and like gives some value feels good for everybody. It feels good for us to be able to impart something that's beneficial on their journey. So that's I think that's how you walk out at the end of the day feeling good about what we've done, helped a business owner on their path to greatness.
Yeah, I think that's so important. Like, that sense of meaning and purpose in the work. As I
Hmm.
said, it's easy to get sort of lost in spreadsheets and numbers and
Hmm.
accounts and, all that sort of stuff. And they don't actually matter at the end of the day. Now, you
Hmm.
mentioned the events company. I want to dive into this because I think, just like then when I asked you about, why you care, you can see on your face that actually this
Hmm.
matters to you. And I saw a
Yeah.
similar glimpse when you mentioned the events. Kelly, tell me more about that.
Yeah, so look, we founded with Marco Bullrush Rally, which was it was back in 2000 and would have been 2015 we did the first rally. So we're coming up to our 10-year anniversary next year, which is pretty exciting. And so one of the our big lesson in this events company was a fascinating one. We started it as an annual car rally to ultimately have a bit of fun, get together a bunch of guys that enjoyed their cars, just wanted to have a bit of fun over a week, and then it started as a pure events company. Let's put on an event, and then the event will be it, and that's all. That was all the vision was when we first started it, and then ran the first event, and then kind of dead silence till the second year. A few months out, did all the marketing for the second year, put on another phenomenal event, and then something dropped. And it was like, we've actually got a phenomenal group of people here. We've got this group of business owners that they've all got rather an expensive garage for one reason or another. We've got business owners that have taken a risk. Very few people understand what it feels like to take a risk, achieve some level of success, done an exit or whatever it takes to have something, an outlandish car or whatever it is that typically comes on these events. And the thing that changed in the second year was actually understanding what we've created is something that is actually the value is the people, not the actual event that we put on. And so, interestingly enough, the whole business model changed in year 2 from going, okay, we're going to do a once-a-year event to actually what matters here is the people. And so from that point onwards, started to do regular events, monthly catch-ups, and instead of just doing a once-a-year 5-day thing, it was like and on that 5-day thing, there are people from all around the country coming in to be part of it. And so all of a sudden, we started to put on events in Sydney, Melbourne, and Brisbane. Sometimes they were drives, but sometimes they're also just dinners and catch-ups, because these people just loved having, I guess, a common interest, which meant there was no egos. Everybody could just sit around a table, have a chat, have a good night out, and everything else. And there was just so much commonality in, like, you'd have builders chatting with IT guys, chatting with insurance guys and all this, with doctors and everything else. So you'd have this eclectic bunch of people from all sorts of different industries. But just you can tell by the volume in any of these rooms that everyone was having an absolute great time getting together with that common interest, but just, yeah, so much in life in common that they could be discussing together.
I love that idea because, so often if you think about these different industries you just talked about, different professions, there's not sort of a natural reason for them to come together. There's the associations where I'm sure all the accountants will get together and all of the teachers will get together and all of these different people, and they have a lot of value and they're great from that
Absolutely.
perspective. But I guess what you're talking about here is actually gathering these diverse groups of people and that common interest being the thing that binds them. What are some of the interesting, I guess, insights you found from getting these really different people together what surprised you, or what have you learned from that?
What surprised me is how many deep and long-lasting friendships have come out of this. And like the number of people who've made friends there, and then you find out 6 months later or something that like the parents are hanging out together, and then their kids are hanging out together, and then they're doing Europe trips together and whatever else. And so it's fascinating how people that would have never, ever have crossed paths before are making long-term friendships. But on a slightly more somber note too, have sadly had to attend the funeral of a couple of guys that who've long term been coming to our events, and it is incredibly humbling that in each of these speeches, one of their kids, son or daughter, will hop up and say, one of my lifelong memories of one of the best weeks I've had with my dad was when he took me on one of those events, and we actually had the whole week together, undivided attention, so many laughs, so many great memories. And it's like, fuck, we created one of the greatest memories in these people's lives that gets mentioned, sadly, at that point in time. But at least we created it. At least it happened. At least it was there to create these lifelong memories. And so that's hit pretty hard, turning up to those things in the last 12 months. There's two separate occasions, unfortunately. But to at least go, hey, we imparted something good there. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
glad you did that.
And you might not know the answer to this. What do you think the I guess the magic is, or maybe a better question would be, why do you think we don't, let me put it a different way, that those people could have taken a week off and taken their child or whatever, so a friend, partner, whoever it might be, for a drive anytime.
Yeah.
But we don't do that, and the event, I think you're saying, is a just great chance that we do. But why don't we do it more often?
Oh my gosh, it's such a good question, and like I've pondered it myself. Like when I was running my first business, I was doing huge hours, 6-hour days, and all of this because I thought that was what was necessary. And look, maybe in a first business where you're still learning a lot of lessons and learning lessons the hard way, doing those long hours, you've got to do it because you go down so many dead ends doing the wrong thing that, yeah, maybe you need to spend that much time and hours. But look, in version 2, so I keep business I'm running day to day. I am so strict on time. It's like 8:30 to 5:30, no client calls after hours, don't check emails on the weekends and all of this. Like, have totally come to appreciate I need to recharge to be the best version of myself when I get to the office for my team and for the businesses we're working with. If I'm exhausted, brain dead, they're not getting the best version of me. And so I think taking the time to recharge and actually prioritizing the time to recharge is such a key lesson. And so, yes, it might take an event like ours where we have planning meetings on going like, how can we put cars in places they shouldn't be? What's the most outlandish thing that we can do? Let's try and race airplanes like 3 meters off the ground above cars and see if we can get that approved by our insurer and whatever else. So like maybe they do this week rather than just a normal holiday because we sit there going, what's the wildest thing we can try and get away with that's just on the right side of legal that we can have a whole lot of fun with these guys. So I mean, look, we try really hard to make the events really special, and maybe that's what the pull is to add. Maybe they're crazy enough to just get their interest to go, look, I'll take a week and have a once in a lifetime experience on one of these events, and maybe that's how we get it in there. And like the funny thing is, they're like, oh, look, I'll do it once. And then they come back the following year, and then they realize they've met some of their best friends, best buddies there, and then they'll kind of come back another year and again, which is really cool.
That's interesting because it's almost, and I'm going to reframe what you said because this is
Yeah.
sort of how I was thinking. It might be wrong, but the event creates almost the excuse for me to say, "Oh, yes, I'll do it because of those things." But
Hmm.
actually, what I take away, they're not at the funeral going, "Oh, remember that time when the car and the plane?" That's
Yeah,
actually
totally.
it's the relationships, it's the
Hmm.
time they spend, it's the friendships and
Hmm.
it's almost strange sometimes that we think we need an excuse to spend time with the people we really want to hang out with.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head with that description. Absolutely.
And I think I want to touch on this because again, it relates to a lot of your clients, small businesses. It relates to what we're talking about with the events. This
Yeah.
idea of work-life balance. I want to get your thoughts on this,
Yeah.
and happy to share some of my thoughts as well. But you mentioned already that you've seen both sides of this coin potentially. What
Yeah.
are some of the things you see in the people you work with, your clients, and the people through the event?
Yeah. In work-life balance. So look, yeah, a big believer these days in that you've got to find the time to recharge. So that's like, yeah, as best as you can. Obviously, it's not 100% of the time, but as best as you can, keep work inside work hours, and also find time at least every 6 months to just change the scenery, go away, even if it's just for a little bit to get that headspace off. And sitting in a plane is when your ideas drop, you feel detached or whatever else. And look, they're things I just didn't do previously, and it's not that hard to do. So I've learned a whole new appreciation for that. But that's also, I think, why a business the first business to get what I built in 9 years took less than 4 years to build when I came back a second time. It's not because I did more hours. It's like, fortunately, I learned my lessons, so I didn't have to repeat lessons that I learned the first time around, which was kind of cool. But I think I've learned how to harness the best, the better version of myself, thinking clearer and just focusing on what's important and not doing and outsourcing what's maybe not a key role. But what have I learned with work-life balance with the team that we've got here in the accounting firm is different people need different things. And so it's not a cookie cutter approach to go like, oh yeah, we've got the ping pong table because okay, that might sort out one of the 30 people that we've got working here. But at the same token, it's like we've got a couple of people here that have families that are overseas. And so at the moment, one of them has an elderly grandmother overseas who's not too well. And it's like, well, how about you just work remotely for 2 months so you can spend a bit of time with her while things are up and down and not too sure how things are going. How about you work remotely? And it's like, oh my God. It's like, well, we all did it in COVID and things worked really well. So how about we do that? And so for that person, that was what they individually needed. Doesn't affect business for me in the slightest, but hopefully again creates like lifetime memories that she'll go like, look, I didn't miss out on an important life event because of work.
Hmm.
And I think understanding that like, yeah, work isn't everything. Work's really important and work's a big chunk of what we do, but work is not everything. We're still all humans at the end of the day. And then yeah, there are other people in the business that have other needs. And I think it's about, again, having a conversation, getting to understand the team that you're working with, what their personal goals are and where they're at, and delivering on what they need. Yeah, some of them need finances to save up for a house in Sydney and whatever else, and so be it. That's their goal. And if that's what their biggest thing is right now, well, let's find ways they can top it up, make a little bit extra or something like that. But like each person has an individual need. Another person might want time or whatever it is. So it all comes down to figuring out what that individual needs to feel heard and feel valued, I think. And it's different for everyone. It's not definitely not the same.
Yeah, I think it's such an important, piece of this leadership. This podcast series around leading with empathy, and too often I think people think that's just being nice to people, but it's
Yeah.
actually understanding them. And
Mm.
you're right, like the ping pong table. If it only works for one person, that's a boring game of ping pong. But
Totally.
but you're exactly right.
Mm.
And too many leaders I work with, they don't necessarily know that the
Yeah.
person's got an elderly mother who's sick, or they
Mm.
don't know that this person loves cars, or this person,
Yeah.
I often talk to leaders about how do you give rewards and incentivize
Mm.
performance. And
Yeah.
if you give someone who's, I don't know, son or daughter is playing soccer this Thursday afternoon,
Mm.
look, why don't you take half the day off and just go and spend time with them, getting ready for
Mm.
the game and watch them.
Yeah.
It'll be worth way more than, a few dollars in a bonus at some point in the rest of the year.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We even found that with team events, like some people like going out for dinner after work. Some people like doing it doing a lunch like during work hours and
Yeah.
not going into the night. And so that's why we kind of go around rotation and let different people choose what the monthly catch up is going to be. So which I find really fun because I love the variety of all these different ideas that people bring in, and we're not just doing pizza and beers on a Friday afternoon because I couldn't think of anything more boring than the monotony of the same thing all the time. So to kind of
Yeah.
go around the group and done all sorts of weird and wonderful things in these team catch-ups, but because it's fed by different people choosing different things on what we're doing. So we get little insights into what they like and what interests them, which is
Yeah.
nice too.
It is. And I was asked about work-life balance, and it was through I was doing some work with a government agency, and
Mm,
I actually came to the position. I said, I don't think work-life balance should exist. It's
mm.
all life.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
You're born, and sometime you pass away, and in
Mhm.
between, there isn't sort of a I'm living now and now I'm working and now it's all life. And
Yeah,
I think this is where when I see your face change when you talk about the meaning and the purpose and
yeah,
the way in which people care about their business and they're
yeah.
growing and the entrepreneur, all of those things I think are where we need to make sure we're focusing on how do we get that
Mm,
life into our work and
yeah.
feel like it's worthwhile doing.
Yeah, nah, and like, yeah, this is a conversation I have with a good mate of mine who just calls it the one life. Like, you can't be a prick in the office and then the most lovely person in your personal life because it's just not, it's not living with integrity. You've got to be the one person in the office and outside of it. So like, it's don't put on a face, don't put on a mask, actually be true to yourself in who you are. And I think that takes not faking or putting on a role, also just reduces a layer of stress on going, oh, am I the same person here as I am there and whatever else. Just be that one person, be yourself that whole time and be true to that.
Yeah.
And yeah, and as part of that, make it all work together and don't kind of sacrifice one for the other. Just have it as one thing. So
Yeah.
yeah, we have some good chats around that because there've been plenty of people that, well, not plenty of people, but there've been times when it's like people that he would have thought was a mate absolutely cut him hard in business. And like, oh look, mate, not personal, it's just business. And if ever I hear that, that is the biggest load of bullshit. Like yeah, you look after your friends and you are the one person. Don't go, hey, oh, it's business. Don't forget about that, but we'll still hang out on the weekend. No,
Yeah.
it's like
Absolutely.
you're one person. You're not one hat here and take the hat off and don't judge me on there. It's like you're one life.
Yeah,
So
and
yeah,
I think it's even deeper than that. So when I work with people in leadership, sometimes you'll get those people who they try to be really nice to their staff, and then when it's performance review or there's a tight deadline or a target, that
yeah,
they transform, right? They're a different person, and I call these the Jekyll and Hyde leader, right?
yeah,
You don't know what you're going to get. It's there's this change that can happen at any point, and when you think about it from the employee side, the problem is
mm,
if I'm going to go and talk to them.
mm,
I don't know which version I'm getting today.
yeah,
If
yeah,
I'm going to have a meeting with them, I don't know what I'm going to get. And
yeah,
so if you think about what would a human naturally do when they're walking into a situation of uncertainty,
mm,
they act defensive, they hold back,
yep,
they look to be a bit safe with it.
yeah, the garden, yeah.
Exactly. And is that really what we want from our people to enter the room sort of holding back? No, we want them to come in, all guns blazing. This is what I need, or this is what's going on. We want them to be open and honest and transparent, right?
Absolutely. I think surely that's the way to get the best out of them.
100%. And
So,
this is, and I think this is an important part that you've touched on a number of times. That means you've got to recharge, you've got to look after yourself. If you're tired and stressed, you can blame that for being an asshole to your people,
yeah.
but it's not that's fault. It's your fault.
Well,
You're
number
still
one, it's
doing it.
your fault. Number two, it's not a good enough excuse. It's like,
Yeah.
control yourself. So like it's two red crosses. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Look, Simon, I want to end up. As I said, I use these empathy cards. I'll often take
Okay.
them to conferences, right? So we'll put them out on tables. People who don't know each other, they can ask a question and start a conversation. So the first one,
Yeah.
what was the last situation at work that really frustrated you?
What was the last situation at work that really frustrated me?
It's a good sign for me that you don't have something that comes immediately to
Yeah,
mind.
I haven't had any red. Yeah, I haven't had any fiery emails for a little while. But I think one of the more recent frustrations is when an error was made because process was not followed, and they were rushing to get through something because client was like, need it now, and they've yeah run reports without doing all the checks and balances first and send it through, and it's like, anything that puts our reputation at risk really frustrates me, because that's something that we spent a lot of time, a lot of training materials, and a lot of resources on. So yeah,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, it's not the mistake itself, it's the impact the mistake has on all that other those other things, right? Trust and
yeah.
reputation and reliability.
And unfortunately, it's all again down to the human element. We've talked about so much of the positive human element today that yeah, sometimes they, in trying to do the right thing, can bend the rules, and yeah,
You
doesn't
could write
always result in
books.
great results. So
You could write many books on that, the examples of that happening in history. Okay, another one.
yeah.
Who's someone you really admire and why?
Who's someone I really admire? It's a good question. So I think the interesting thing with that question is there's probably not any one particular person, but there are different people that seem to have nailed different parts of life, or different things that I take different elements from along the way. And so whether I look at circles of friends that I admire and how they've so well balanced family life with running a great business and not had to do all the potentially tough lessons that I've done, but actually took on board things. I admire them. And I mean, yeah, look, I'm always listening to the podcasts, following the big names, where it's your Grant Cardones, Branson, and all of these that trying to learn from these guys on what they've done, how they've built empires and the like. But yeah, some of the people I admire the most are just some of the unknown mates that have just managed to actually have an awesome one life, balanced, not even balanced, but have integrated family, business, their own time inside of that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's doing that, doing the dash well, right? The date you're born, the date you die, the dash is the bit in the middle. The
Yes.
dash is all that matters. And I think, yeah, there's a lot to admire about people who uh, just have that sort of relaxed smile on their face because things are working well.
Relax, smile, and a good story, I think, is the
Yeah.
ultimate goal. Yeah.
Awesome. If you could go back and change one decision in your career, what would that be?
If I could change one decision in my career, I'd probably take more risks. I mean, I played it very safe along the way. Always had cash flow positive businesses by design and by model. Haven't ever had a safety blanket. Like never had, like since I was 20-ish, there was never a family home to go back to or anything like that. So it was like, fuck, if the business doesn't actually make enough this month or this week, I don't know where I'd be. So like I've had to run all businesses with no safety net, which has been probably why, well, number one, played safe, but always made it and worked hard, because I would work hard to make sure stuff worked. But going back, sometimes, yeah, the times when you've taken a risk, hired the extra person, or tried something that's just completely a little bit crazy, it's amazing how many times those things pay off. So yeah.
Look, it's not surprising to me that an accountant says I should have taken more risks, but
Yeah,
sometimes,
probably. So,
yeah. Look, we've heard stories of those accountants that do that too much, and what happens there as well.
yeah. Oh, not in the work, in the running the business side of things. Have people work to
And
say super conservative.
yeah, that's right. Last one. What's a song? And again, this might take, what's a song that defines your childhood? If you think back to your childhood, growing up,
Yeah.
what's a song that you go, oh, that really sort of reminds me of that time?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Well, look, around the house, we couldn't stop. That my dad wouldn't stop playing the Beach Boys or Van Morrison. So I mean, you could choose anything from either of those two artists, and they'd be either on the record player at home or on in the car. So I don't know whether it's fond memories or I'm scarred, but
Well,
yeah.
what happens when a Beach Boy song, Kokomo
Oh
comes
gosh,
on the radio,
start shaking.
start shaking uncontrollably. Look, thanks, Simon. It's been a real pleasure chatting to you. If people want to get in touch with you, we'll have all of your links and those sorts of things in the notes. But it's a real pleasure, and it's great to hear, that passion you bring to not only your work and supporting small businesses, but those events and really forming those connections that last the test of time and last in people's hearts. So thanks for the chat, and look forward to seeing you soon, mate.